السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. Khairan inshallah. Yesterday's class we spoke on fasting as a person who is junub. What's the ruling on that? The 25th hadith of the chapter. We've come to the last hadith of the chapter, hadith number 26, in which the author, rahimahullah, Hafidh ibn Hajar, he says, وعن عائشة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من مات وعليه صيام صام عنه وليه متفق عليه. وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من مات وعليه صيام صام عنه وليه متفق عليه. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man mata," who dies or whoever dies, and he missed days, he has fasting that he has missed. Or another translation, upon him is some type of fast, a fast that is mandatory upon him. Then his wali, his a relative, a family member, one way of translating the word wali, another way one could say heir, has to fast on his behalf. It has to fast, or he or she has to fast on his or her behalf. Khairan inshallah. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrates that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, "Man mata," whoever dies, wa alayhi siyamun, and upon him is fasting, Saman hu waliyuhu, his wali will fast on behalf of him. Khairan inshallah. Today's class we're going to read from a different sharh, a different commentary. And alhamdulillah, this is a great book, a great work. And it is not a classic work or a classical work, but it's relatively contemporary or modern. The Sheikh has passed away, but it's of the modern age. And that is Tawdih al-Ahkam min Bulugh-Maram. The book which is called Tawdih al-Ahkam, clarification of the rulings from Bulugh-Maram. The author says, Ta'lif Raji Afwa Rabbihi Abdullah ibn Abdurrahman al-Bassam غفر الله له ولوالديه وللمسلمين. Sheikh Abdullah al-Bassam, he wrote an explanation to Bulugh-Maram in several volumes, and it is a very scholastic explanation, high grade, full of fawaid for the student of knowledge. And one of the distinguishing features of this sharh is that he mentioned many introductions that are all important for the student of knowledge, with regards to mustalah al-hadith, ilm al-rijal, with regards to usul al-fiqh, with regards to al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya. All right, and his explanation is very, very structured. All right, mufradat al-hadith, ma yu'khadu min al-hadith, khilaf al-ulama, and he also gives the different modern conclusions and summaries of the different conferences and the different summits that the fuqaha of today have, the majami' fiqhiyya, all right, the fiqh councils, the qararat, all right, of the different modern day fiqh councils, and the different debates and scholastic papers and researches that they have. He mentions this in his book in many places. Also, he gives an introduction to every book and to every chapter, a muqaddimah or tamheed to every book, kitab kada, and also to every bab, which is extremely important for the student of knowledge who wants to blend the old with the new, the east and the west, the classic and the traditional with the modern novelty. All right, so a very, very important book to have in your library for a student of hadith, for a student of fiqh al-muqaran, comparative fiqh, for a student of fiqh al-sunnah, so on and so forth. Khairan inshallah. So the first section of his sharh, the Shaykh rahimahullah, he says, وَلِيُّهُ مَنْ وَلِيَ الشَّيْءَ يَلِيهِ وِلَايَةً أو وَلَايَةً بِالْفَتْحِ وَالْكَسْرِ وَالْوَلِيُّ فَعِيلٌ بِمَعْنَى فَاعِلٍ مِنْ وَلِيَهُ إِذَا قَامَ بِهِ وَالْجَمْعُ أَوْلِيَاء ويطلق على القريب والناصر ذكرا كان أو أنثى وسيأتي فيما يؤخذ من الحديث أن المراد به الوارث. He says first and foremost is the vocabulary from this hadith. The vocabulary, the mufradat. And the first piece of vocabulary is wali. Man mata, whoever dies and there's fasting on him, sama anhu waliyuhu. His wali will fast for him on his behalf. The word wali is someone who takes care of someone or something. Someone who takes care of something or someone. And it can be used for a close relative. It can be used for a supporter, whether the person is a male or female. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, later on it's going to come, we're going to explain that what's meant in this hadith is the warith, in air. Like I said previously, in air. Someone who actually inherits. And obviously it's a very detailed discussion with regards to the Islamic rulings of inheritance. Al-mawarith, or al-irth, or al-fara'id. The rules of inheritance. Who inherits what? What is the thing that prevents a person from becoming an heir, so on and so forth. So as if the hadith says, whoever dies and he owes fasting or days of fasting, his heir should fast for him. His heir should fast for him. Khairan inshallah. Ma yu'khadhu min al-hadith. What do we take from this hadith? What do we take from this hadith? He says, أولا الديون التي على الميت يجب قضاؤها سواء كانت لله تعالى كالزكاة والصيام أو للآدميين. Benefit number one is that debts must be paid off. If a person dies, he owes someone something, it has to be paid off. Regardless whether the person owes Allah something or whether a person owes a human being something. If you owe Allah zakat, fasting, anything like this, it has to be paid on your behalf, or if you owe a human being something, money, property, etc. So that's the first fa'idah of the hadith, is that death does not stop the huquq, the rights of people. Number two, أن أولى من يتولى أداء ذلك عنه هو وارثه الذي له عليه حق البر فهذا من أعظم البر والإحسان. Is that the person who should look after this, the one who should take care of this, the one who should be in the forefront of taking care of the debts of the deceased is the heir, is the warith. If anyone was going to pay off the debt, take care of the responsibility, it should be the heir. And the heir has the duty and the responsibility of birr, of being benevolent to the deceased family member or the deceased person from which you have this relationship and which you inherit from them. And this is from the greatest types of birr and ihsan. To be benevolent, to be kind, is to take care of someone's needs, someone's debts after they have passed on. And this is extremely important. This hayat dunya is not the final resting place or abode. It's not the end. This is barely the beginning. So a relationship that you have for someone, you lose someone, you're traumatized by the death of someone, you still show love to them after they die. You still make dua for them, give sadaqah on their behalf, you visit their friends. There's so much that you can do for that person. There's so much that you can do for that person, even though they've left this hayatul dunya. Point number three, ظاهر الحديث وجوب قضاء الصيام عن الميت سواء كان واجبا بأصل الشرع أو نذرا فالصيام في الحديث نكرة تشمل كل صوم. He says that which is apparent from this hadith, that which is obvious from this hadith, is that it is obligatory to make up these missed days, or the days that are mandatory, not missed. The days that are obligatory and mandatory upon the dead Muslim, they have to be made up. Alright? Regardless whether the days were originally obligatory, such as fasting in Ramadan, or a person made another, he made a vow, and he made those days mandatory upon him or herself. I missed 3 days out of Ramadan, or I said, oh Allah, I promise and I swear to fast 3 days for your sake. Oh Allah, if you allow me to finish this exam successfully, I will fast 3 days for your sake. Another. So anything that the person has made obligatory upon himself, or Allah has placed it upon him, and he dies, and he didn't do that, or she didn't fast those days, it has to be what? Made on behalf of the deceased person. Point number four. أن الذي يتولى أداء الصيام عن الميت هو وارثه الذي انتفع بما خلفه من مال فيقتضي ذلك القيام بأداء الديون التي لله تعالى أو لخلقه تطبيقا للقاعدة الشرعية من غنم غرم والخراج بالضمان. He says here that the one who is to take care of these debts, the one who is to look after these responsibilities and these rights, is the heir. And the heir, it's only right that he does it because he benefited from the person. I left you wealth, take care of my debts. You inherited money from me, property from me. It's only right that you what? Look after me when I'm gone. Okay? Regardless whether these rights and responsibilities are for Allah and or His created beings. And this is based off of qawa'id, principles in the religion. And from those principles is the principle that says, Man ghanima, ghanima. Whoever gets, owes. You get, you owe. Man ghanima, ghanima. The one who ghanim, who gets ghanima, you get some spoils, you now have to what? Pay back something. You have to give back something. You have to pay back and give back something. And the qaida, wal kharaju bid daman. Okay? With regards to you taking something, you getting something, you now have a certain type of assurance or warranty that you have to provide. Moving forward, point number 5. إذا كان للميت عدد من الأولياء فيجوز أن يتقاسموا أيام الصيام التي على موروثهم أو على مورثهم ويصوم كل واحد منهم قسما منها سواء كانوا رجالا أو نساء أو من الصنفين ولو قام بالصيام في يوم واحد.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. So that which is the next point number 5, is that if the dead person leaves several heirs behind, several walis, several awliya, then they can split up the days that are binding. Let's say a person had 20 days that he had to fast for Allah. 20 days. 15 days out of Ramadan, 2 Ramadans together, 3 Ramadans, whatever, and 5 days for another. So he has several different heirs, people that inherited from him. It's permissible for them to do what? Split the days up. I'll take 2 days, you take a week, he'll take 3 days, he'll take a day. Whether they're men, whether they're women, and it's also permissible for them to fast all at once. Each of them can fast in the same day. So if you have 15 heirs, hypothetically speaking, or 5 or 10, and they all fasted on Wednesday, it was 15 of them, your days will be what? They will be taken care of according to this. Next point. هذا ما لم يكن يشترط فيه أو ما لم يكن يشترط فيه التتابع كالكفارة فإنه لا يجوز أن يصومه جميعا وإنما يصوم أحدهم بعضه ثم يكمله الآخر. He says that 5th point is only correct if the fasting does not have to be done consecutively. It's like kafara. Can you fast shahraini mutatabi'ain, 2 months back to back? If the fasting has to be done consecutively back to back, then they can't do it all in one day. Rather, one person can do 30 days and another one can do 30 days. However long it has to be. All right, so that is an absolute. The next section of the sharh, the author, rahimahullah, says, khilaf al-ulama, the difference of the ulama, or the differing of the ulama. What different views do they have? And this is extremely important for the student of knowledge. And as some of the Salaf al-Salih used to say, they say, ما شم ريح الفقه من لم يعرف خلاف الفقهاء. Is that if you do not know, if you're oblivious, if you're unaware of the difference and the differing of the ulama, you haven't smelt the aroma of fiqh. You've never smelt the stench of fiqh. You don't know what it smells like if you are just stuck with one madhab or one sheikh. Listen to these words. The Salaf al-Salih, they would say this, is that ما شم ريح الفقه, you have not smelt the fragrance, the aroma of fiqh, if you do not know the khilaf, the ikhtilaf of the people of knowledge. If you don't know what they said, what they agreed upon, what they differed, you don't know the smell of fiqh. Very different today than the people who push and promote the culture of taqleed, who push and promote the culture of just sticking with one person, who stick and promote the culture, only take from this person, only listen to this person, only study with this person. Those who promote this foul culture of just being a deer, a fawn, just being a sheep. All right, one shepherd says, hey, and you go run to that shepherd, and that's it. And not to use your brain. Don't research, don't think, don't attempt to find the dalil, to look into the proofs and to the evidences, and to come out with the conclusion yourself. All right, so he mentions in his book a section on the khilaf of the ulama. And the student of knowledge needs to know the ijma' and the khilaf. What they agreed on, what they didn't agree on. And he has to know what, how, when, where. He has to know. He has to study. You have to use your brain. And if you want to be a student of knowledge, if you aspire to be a scholar, and you do not wish to put your brain to use, and you just want to be spoon-fed and have someone give you a bowl and drink from it, then you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. So he says, اختلف أو اختلف في حكم قضاء الصيام من مات وعليه صيام على ثلاثة أقوال. There are three views with regards to this initial issue. A person dies, there are days that are obligatory, they have to be done, and he didn't do or she didn't do those days. Should you make those days up? Do you have to make those days up? What is the ruling? Three views, three madhabs. Number one, أنه لا يقضى عنه بحال لا النظر ولا الواجب بأصل الشرع وهذا مذهب الأئمة الثلاثة. View number one is exactly opposite to this hadith, is that those days are not to be made up, period, bihal. Those days are never made up for the deceased Muslim. Regardless whether it was a vow, whether it was obligatory days in Ramadan, anything. The days are not to be made up. He died, he had those days that he owed to Allah, they're left. Leave them. And this is the view of three of the four Imams. Three of the four Imams. Three of the four Imams. Not four of them, but three of them. الثاني يصام عنه النظر دون الواجب أصل الشرع وهذا مذهب الإمام أحمد والليث وإسحاق وأبي عبيد ونصره ابن القيم. View number two is that the days that were mandatory upon the deceased Muslim because of a vow are to be made up. Make up the days that are mandatory and obligatory because of another, a vow that the servant made upon himself, promising Allah to make those days of fast that were not obligatory. He made them obligatory upon himself. He died without making it those days. Then the wali does what? Fast on his behalf. And this was the view of Imam Ahmed. He says this is the view of Imam Ahmed. So meaning that the first view is the view of Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Shafi'i, according to this. He says Imam Ahmed had this view. Also Layth ibn Sa'd, Ishaq ibn Rahaway, Abu Ubaid, we know who Abu Ubaid was, Al-Qasim ibn Salam, famous Imam, whom Imam Ahmad had a great deal of respect and love for. His name isn't mentioned and brought up enough, Abu Ubaid. Also, it was the view that was supported by Ibn al-Qayyim. الثالث, view number three, يصام عن الميت النذر الذي تمكن من أدائه ولم يصم كما يصام عنه الواجب أصل الشرع وهذا قول أبي ثور وأهل الحديث ونصره ابن حزم وجماعة من محدث الشافعية وعلق الإمام الشافعي القول به على صحة الحديث. قال البيهقي لو وقف الشافعي على جميع طرق الأحاديث لم يخالفها إن شاء الله. واختار هذا القول الشيخ عبد الرحمن السعدي وقال إنه اختيار شيخ الإسلام في جميع الديون التي على الميت لله أو للآدميين أوجبها على نفسه أو وجبت عليه بأصل الشرع. The Sheikh says the third view is that he says يصام عن الميت النذر الذي تمكن من أدائه ولم يصمه, is everything. Is that if a person made a vow upon himself to fast days and he had the ability to make those days, meaning he died after he was healthy and strong. He vowed to fast 3 days for Allah's sake. Then he lived for another year afterwards, and he wasn't sick during that last year, and he died in a car accident. He had the ability to do what? To make up those 3 days. To Meccan, he had the ability to make up those days. Then the wali should fast on his behalf. He says here, rahimahullah ta'ala, or he says just as the obligatory fast, the original obligatory days are made up as well, meaning Ramadan, or anything else. A person on Hajj, a mixed tamattu', he doesn't have the animal to sacrifice. Anything bi asl al-shar, that's obligatory upon a servant based off of the sharia and not the nadhr, the additional promise that a person makes to Allah. Everyone understand these words? Moving forward. He says, and this was the view of Imam Abu Thawr, and it was also the view of Ahlul Hadith. It was the view of Ahlul Hadith, and it was the view that was supported by Ibn Hazm, rahimahullah, and many Hadith scholars of the Shafi'i madhab. And Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he said that he would take this view if the Hadith was authentic. If the Hadith was authentic. And the Bayhaqi, rahimahullah, the famous Shafi'i Hadith master, he said that a Shafi'i, rahimahullah, if he knew that the Hadith was authentic, he would have taken it. Inshallah, he wouldn't have went against it. Making an excuse for his Imam. How can he take a view that's clearly against this authentic Hadith? He's making an excuse for him, and he's trying to justify Shafi'i not taking that view. And this was also the view of Sheikh Sa'di, rahimahullah, and the view of Ibn Taymiyyah, all debts, those owed to Allah, those owed to the servants, to the humans, should be paid off. And then the Shaykh rahimahullah wa alaikum salam, he mentions the dalil, the adillah, the proofs and the arguments for these three views. The proofs and arguments for these three views. So you can see the value of the book. Okay? You can see the what? The value of the book. How it's a tool and a weapon for the student of knowledge to learn the madhahib of the ulama, past and present, specifically and especially of the past, and to decipher and to discern. Also, is another section he has fa'idah, the different benefits. This is a tremendous book. And the last thing that I will say is, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and I think this doesn't need an explanation. We explained it in several mini classes. When it comes to the scholars of past and of present, mutaqaddimeen, mutaakhirin, al-mu'asirin, the scholars that are alive, current day scholars, we don't condone a person disrespecting any scholar and discrediting any scholar unjustly, without a reason, without a dalil, without a proof, without a reason. Okay? That's the asl. There's no doubt about that. And when we claim, or when we tell the people to go back to the earlier scholars and stick to the Salaf al-Salih and the scholars who came before, it doesn't mean that the current day scholars have no benefit with them. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that they have no respect and they have no status. It does not mean that. But there are reasons why we say this. First and foremost is purity. Secondly, why deal with 10 middlemen if you can deal with one middleman? If someone is quoting from Ibn Qayyim, stating Ibn Qayyim, why not go to the kalam of Ibn Qayyim yourself, if you have the ability to understand his speech? Okay? Let alone the fact that no one can deny the reality that there are many things that have happened and that do happen on a daily basis with regards to politics, with regards to the world today, that has an effect upon modern day fatwa and modern day opinions and views. There's no question about that. Let alone the fact that many of the Salaf al-Salih, they were warned from taking the examples of living people. They were warned from this. And they would say, take the example of those who have died. Because the person who's alive is never safe from fitna. And we've seen this. One day, a scholar, he comes to the United States, mashallah, read his books, listen to his classes, take his fiqh views, his opinions, and then next week, next month, next year, the scholar is an innovator. Well, he's warned from. He's a deviant. Don't take from him. Don't benefit from him. How many times has that happened in the United States? How many times? Rather, one could say all of the different scholars who came to the United States have all been what? Refuted. So there's a problem. So to take something as an absolute ruling, a qaida, do this, do that, sign this paper, make this bayan, make this agreement, this tahawun, this whatever, in the UK and America, and now look, those scholars who made those agreements and those brothers signed those papers in the UK, where are they now? This is from the reasons, there are other reasons as well, why we say, go back. And why we make certain stipulations. And these stipulations are not absolute, and not all the time, because how many classes and fa'idas have we done? We read from what? Sheikh bin Baz, Uthaymeen, Albani, Sheikh Muqbil, and other mashayikh as well. There's those on all of the ulama, those on all the scholars. We said what? From them. Everyone understand this? So no one be misinformed or confused or to feel that is no consistency when we read from the classical book and then we read from a modern day book, or we say this stipulation about modern day scholars, only quote from those scholars, so on and so forth. Everyone understand this? Let that be known, inshallah ta'ala. And I don't think that needs to be said. That's been proven in so many different fawaid and khutbah and lectures and lessons over the years. But for clarity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We would take only a few questions today, whereas we have other obligations and responsibilities, and Allah surely knows best.